kind of silly and fraudulent tariff war than a real tariff war, because a real tariff war doesn't help anybody. But let's not sort of let ourselves go down the path of thinking that there are actual real issues. The venue for solving problems is already in place and has been used by every previous US and Indian administration. Instead, what's happening here is just Trump essentially being both the arsonist and the fireman.
Yes, so Jonah Blank, let's talk about the points of convergences here and how, despite those short-term irritants, be it immigration issue or tariffs, the two leaders, who have the entire world watching, the world's oldest democracy, the world's largest democracy, they are the heads of these two, democracies. That's why we are calling this entire coverage as dialogue of democracies. They have much to talk.
Yes. The good news here is that the US and India have been close partners through Democratic and Republican administrations in Washington and BJP and Congress administrations in India. There's a firm bipartisan consensus in both countries for the relationship. So the good news is that the trend lines are there and will continue. And I've been saying the same thing actually since the early 1990s. When I was in government, I was part of implementing this across both Republican and Democratic administrations. That's the good news. The bad news is that Trump doesn't care about any of this. So we may well see some turbulence in the months and years to come.
No, but a word on Donald Trump. Are we, reading too less into his personality by saying that he is purely transactional? There's more to him.
Not much. I mean, he's one of the most transparent individuals on the planet. Anyone who claims they don't understand Trump has just not been paying attention. He's enormously transactional and he's enormously ego-driven. That's who he is. That if you want to understand what Trump will do in any circumstance, just think transaction and ego, and you've basically got it.
All right, Jonah Blank, thank you so much. A quick break and then we return. This remains our top focus here on NDTV. A continuous coverage as Prime Minister Modi and Donald Trump's crucial bilateral meeting has begun inside the White House.
Mahakumbh, the festival of faith, the world's biggest spiritual festival, the divine dip at the spiritual Sangam, a sacred confluence of faith, culture and heritage. NDTV's mega coverage of the Mega Fest. NDTV at Mahakumbh 2025.
As India accelerates its growth towards self-reliance, India Inc. is leading the charge. From market dominance to manufacturing, from AI breakthroughs to disruptive innovations, India is setting the roadmap for a Viksit Bharat. Join us as business leaders, policymakers and ministers come together at the NDTV Profit Conclave 2025, the blueprint for Viksit Bharat, February 18th, 10 a.m. onwards. Tune in only on the NDTV network.
I've been reporting on all issues big and small from Andhra Pradesh, Telangana, rest of South India, bringing you all the action, all that you need to know, all that you want to know.
The energy of Maximum City is infectious. I bring in that energy in our news coverage from financial capital Mumbai.
Covering from the southernmost part of India over the last 23 years, I bring in-depth and 360-degree coverage from the Dravidian heartland.
The land of Mishti is also known for its bitter politics. I have seen much water flow under the Howrah Bridge, covering Bengal in all its vivid colors.
This
This week on India Ascends.
We decode the ins and outs of the historic PM Modi President Trump meet. Mumbai to Marseille, why IMEC is poised to bring the global north and south together, and how BrahMos missile is pushing India to the forefront of military innovation and reshaping global defense dynamics.
All this and more only on India Ascends with me, Gauri Dwivedi, at these timings on the NDTV network.
Big budget day. Big newsmakers on NDTV. Top ministers and opposition leaders.
ये by the people, of the people and for the people budget.
It is a fulfilling budget.
This is a development budget.
It's one of the finest budgets I've ever seen.
More than a bold move, it is a clever move.
NDTV, always the first choice of newsmaker. NDTV keeps you ahead.
There is a growing realization across the global capitals that this is a relationship which is fast moving beyond the pale of bilateralism into truly a force for global good.
Looking ahead to Prime Minister Modi's visit here to Washington, D.C. as he meets with President
Prime Minister Modi arrives at the White House for the crucial bilateral meeting with Donald Trump after Donald Trump's tough tariff talks. From Tesla chief to NSA wars, it has been a day of power-packed meetings of Prime Minister Modi. He makes his presence felt. And NDTV's Nikunj Garg brings you ball-by-ball coverage, continuous 24 hours from inside the White House now. President Trump signs a study for trade imbalances. Trump says expect no exemptions, but this is not really an executive order, which he had earlier indicated to sign.
I have decided, for purposes of fairness, that I will charge a reciprocal tariff, meaning whatever countries charge the United States of America, we will charge them, no more, no less.
And Donald Trump says that Ukraine war has to end. Both Zelensky and Putin want it. He, in fact, proposes that he would love to have Russia back in the G7. And Prime Minister Modi has arrived at the White House. The bilateral with Donald Trump has begun. Let me go straight to Alistair, who's joining us live. Alistair, so minutes ago, what we were told by Jessica Stone, who had access to that memo, which has been signed by Donald Trump, which is essentially more of a study which has to be done by the trade officials and also by the Homeland Security, that the trade imbalances have to be studied. But I think you have a group of Indians there. Please speak to them. Get us some sound bites this morning.
Maria, I'm going to answer that question in just a minute. There's one people that have done all over the US. They're hard speaking at the box. We've been real hoping to catch a glimpse of him. Anyone managed to catch a glimpse of Prime Minister Narendra Modi? You did? Okay, great. And where did you come from?
I came from Chandigarh.
Okay.
I felt so blessed to meet Modi and I'm here today too.
You met him?
Yes, I met him.
And what did you say to him? And what did he say? All right.
That's after he touched my head. I'm so
right. Who else met him? Did you meet? Yeah. What did you say?
and everything. But once he comes, I don't know where the power comes. He's the power back.
Right.
And he gave the shake hand and he pulled the mic. And, very happy.
Okay, any particular issue that you think that Narendra Modi should be bringing up with Donald Trump, please?
It's a big the best voice for legal immigration. So I think that is
What about the legal immigration, H-1B visas?
H-1B visas, and there are other routes like other visas, fast track.
I'm going to come back to you in just a bit till you get a better connection. We'll try and fix that line. Drumil is joining us. He is an AI, tech and data science expert. Drumil, as someone who is into AI, which meeting was of most interest to you? I can see Seema Sirohi as well, author and columnist for Economic Times, and Jake Novak, who is the political analyst with Political Analyst. Drumil, coming to you.
Yep, the recent meeting between the PM Modi and Donald Trump primarily focused on trade, tariffs, and defense cooperation. So while AI is in a central topic of the discussions, the strengthening of economic and strategic ties between India and the US is kind of a future collaborations in emerging technologies, including AI. So, both nations have shown a key interest in advancing AI, as evidenced by initiatives like US-India Initiative on Critical and Emerging Technologies, which is known as ICET, which kind of aims to enhance cooperation in areas such as quantum computing, semiconductors, and AI. And I personally believe, according to the recent AI summit, India's active participation in global AI dialogues, such as, the Paris summit hosted by PM Modi and French President Emmanuel Macron, underscores the commitment of the nations. And these efforts, combined with the deepening US-India partnership, suggest, a broader strategic alignment that would foster all advancements in AI collaboration.
Yes, and particularly in that meeting that he had with Michael Waltz, the National Security Advisor, he highlighted this sector. He spoke about AI, semiconductors, space, and more.
Oh, yep, absolutely. So, for companies like Tesla, SpaceX, India presents an unparalleled opportunity, a billion-plus market. And PM Modi has met with NSA, Elon Musk, which signifies a strategic alignment between India's digital ambitions and Silicon Valley's technology leadership. So India is already known for its vast talent pool, and growing AI ecosystem is no longer a consumer, right? But it's about co-developing the next gen AI models, autonomous systems, and deep space innovations that will redefine the global tech landscape.
Okay, Durya Dinojwala is also joining us. She is an immigration law expert. I'm coming to you, Ms. Sirohi. When we look at the itinerary of Prime Minister Modi, of course, this is the most important aspect of it. But before that, he had two critical players of the security apparatus of Donald Trump administration meet him. You had Tulsi Gabbard and also the National Security Advisor, followed by someone who heads the Department of Government Efficiency, and of course, Vivek Ramaswamy. It has been pretty a high-profile visit, but what do you think will be the big messaging that will come from this meeting, which is happening even as we speak?
Well, it's, it has to conclude when we get the joint statement, we can say, but so far, the main focus has been on tariffs and the decision of President Trump to announce a study on reciprocal tariffs. Hours, like an hour before he was to meet the Prime Minister of India, is a kind of a signal, which I'm sure the Indian side was expecting, but not in such a direct manner. So that may overshadow other things. But I think tariffs are not the only part of the relationship, and we shouldn't focus too much on that. The relationship between India and the United States is very broad-based. So the fact that he met the National Security Advisor Mike Waltz, met Tulsi Gabbard, her first meeting after being sworn in by President Trump, all those indicate that, the India-US strategic partnership The main linchpin, of course, the main reason for convergence is China and its aggressive behavior in the Indo-Pacific and beyond. So we have to, and the cooperation in technology, in space, in whichever domain you look at, the two countries are working together. But the emphasis on tariffs has kind of, I would say, undermined the understanding for the public that how important the relationship is, and the US side emphasized that this morning in a briefing by senior administration officials.
Are you of that opinion then, Mr. Roy, that there has been an overemphasis on this, that there are several aspects of this relationship that tends to be undermined because we are overplaying the issue of tariffs?
Well, I think so because, problematic issues can be siloed. Just like under the Biden administration, you saw the indictments and the alleged assassination plot, etc., were not allowed to undermine the larger, broader relationship. I think in the same way, progress will be made on other issues. And that's why I say it's important to wait for the joint statement. The fact that the Indian side announced that there will be a joint statement means one thing, that they've been working on it for a while. And things have been agreed to, and which will show progress in all of the main areas, mainly technology, defense cooperation, energy. So that's the way I look at it. I know I might be in a minority situation here.
Seema Siroy, I tend to agree with every observation that you have made here. So not really a minority on that count. But Jake Novak, come in now about the irritants. Let's look at the areas of challenges, particularly to do with humans, in the sense that people-to-people equations, that has been impacted particularly with the deportation. The illegal migrants, the way that they were handcuffed and then deported, Indian side did register their view that there has to be a humane deportation. Go ahead with deportation, because if they are illegal immigrants, but why handcuff them? Why chain them?
Well, the answer to that question immediately is people need to know internationally that the people who are being deported now, the people who are being arrested now, are not just people who are here in this country illegally. I'm talking to you from the United States right now. They are the worst of the worst. These are people who have criminal records both in their home countries and here for violent crimes. That is the priority right now. They're not the only people being deported, but they are the overwhelming majority of them. And so this is a very serious situation. The people who are now standing up and trying to stop these deportations now are being very unwise, because these are very unpopular people in this country by far. And I can't think of more than, I don't think that any of them, for example, are Indian or Pakistani or people like that, maybe one or two. But in general, that isn't the group that's being going after. These are Central American, South American gang members, drug traffickers, child sex traffickers, and the like. So, look, that doesn't mean you can brutalize a prisoner. You're never allowed to do that. But to put them in handcuffs, to put them in serious security prisons, that is justified. So that's one thing. But look, I think Prime Minister Modi and Donald Trump see eye to eye on that. And I think the most important part of everything we should not ignore the elephant in the room, which is this is very early in President Trump's second term, and he's making sure to invite Prime Minister Modi to be basically the first massively large country world ruler to come visit him. There have been other foreign leaders who have seen President Trump, but they've been mostly Israel and Middle East, smaller countries. This is a very, very big shot in the arm for the Indian-American partnership that so early in this term, President Trump has made sure that he has this visit with Prime Minister Modi. And that should, by the way, send a very strong message to China mostly, but also to Russia, that the United States is exploring all of its options. And the friendship we should have had with India, this level of friendship, we should have had this friendship with India a long time ago. I blame Democrat presidents Obama and Biden for not making us that friend, not accentuating that friendship as much as they should. So that's really the headline today, I think, for everyone around the world.
Okay, so and the fact is that Prime Minister Modi is the only fourth leader who has been accorded that welcome in many ways by Washington, D.C. He is following the Israeli and Japanese premiers and also, Jordan's King Abdullah. So the emphasis on strong bipartisan equations cannot be missed. But delve a little more on Mr. Novak, because you're saying that this is a shot in the arm on the Indian side if they have managed a meeting of this nature within less than a month of Donald Trump's second presidency. Do you think China in particular will be watching this?
Oh, I think they're watching it very closely, and they should be nervous because the United States understands that the leadership that India has had now for quite some time. I mean, Prime Minister Modi is not a fly-by-night leader. He's been there for more than a decade. That's very important. And by the way, it is my strong belief that the world's turn to a more populist, common sense leadership throughout the world probably began with the election of Prime Minister Modi, not with Donald Trump. I think Donald Trump was the beginning of that here in the United States. But I think that there is a move towards more common sense. I wouldn't call it conservative. I would call it common sense leadership. I think that began with Modi's election, and it eventually got here to the United States only 2 years later, which is pretty impressive turnaround. But yes, this is definitely a message to China. I think there are a lot of nations around the world, the United States, Israel, a few other countries that are really looking to India and have been for some time as an alternative to having to rely on China, as an alternative to being afraid of China. And we must get that partnership more solidified. And I think we took a turn away from it under President Biden. I don't know what President Biden was cultivating in this world at all, frankly. I don't think he was really doing much for America's presence overseas and friendships overseas with our important allies. But now that President Trump is back in office, you don't have to like President Trump. You don't have to be a conservative. But you do have to be a decent and common sense person to understand that we must enhance our relationship with India. It's our only option in that general region of the world. We have no other option. We're already friendly with Japan, but Japan is a shrinking country, and it's an important ally. But imagine the combination of the United States, India, Japan, and a few of our other allies there to really stand strong against what China's doing. This is essential, and it's a shame we took 4 years off from this relationship, but we're getting it back on now.
Okay. Let me bring in Durya now and get into the H-1B visa program. MAGA camps certainly have talked about curtailing it. Donald Trump has to address his domestic constituency as well. But clampdown of this nature, do you think really they can talk much about it? Or in fact, let's play those visuals full frame now, because those visuals have started coming in from inside the Oval Office, where the first set of visuals are coming in of Prime Minister Modi and US President Donald Trump. They are there. There is a huge media contingent which is there from all across the world, given the nature of curiosity which is there between the two sides. But yes, Durya, go ahead. Let's talk about H-1B visa quota that India has. India, of course, is the key beneficiary of this program. But both Donald Trump and DOGE chief Elon Musk have emphasized on the fact that it is about merit, and Indians do have that merit and the advantage of merit.
So good evening to your viewers.
Yes, Durya, go ahead.
Yes, so I'm located in Ohio, and as far as I can see, I do H-1B visas. I do not see any changes in the H-1B visa program. It is very much a legal program, and in fact, the H-1B lottery registration will begin next month in March of 2025. And the rules and regulations pretty much remain the same. So I'm kind of glad that there have been no changes to the H-1B visa program. So I do not foresee any changes for it, at least in the short term.
Okay, and Do you think that's one of the issues that could come up today?
So I do not know if it was discussed, but I have seen President Trump's basically all the news last month, and I do not know what was discussed, but I do not foresee any changes in it.
All right.
And if
Seema
it
Surai.
has been, I would
Seema
agree
Surai
with
coming
you that
to you. Seema Surai coming to you. We are looking at those visuals from inside the Oval Office where President Trump and Prime Minister Modi are sitting next to each other. This is an important meeting. The two leaders have much in common, much views in common. There has been a great degree of bonhomie on display. Prime Minister Modi's diplomacy, Seema Surai, has been very personality driven, which has been driven by his personal equations with the world leaders. And we have seen how negotiations happen best when it is driven by that personal bonhomie.
Right. I mean, the two leaders have met several times in the past and have a close rapport, and they have kind of a personal relationship. President Trump has never criticized the Prime Minister, even though he has criticized India's tariff regime. So that's very interesting. You know, sometimes he criticizes people, calls them names and things. He did that, especially with European leaders the last time around. But I want to point out a couple of things. This is Trump 2.0. It's a very different administration. I wouldn't put too much faith in how well it went the last time around, because anything could happen. This time, President Trump needs certain goals to be met that he has promised his base, and he's going about it in a very determined manner. His cabinet is all on the same page, unlike the last time. So this is a meeting where the two leaders will kind of reacquaint themselves with each other again, and it's a different world also. Not only is it a different administration, the world is also different. So we'll just have to wait and see what comes out of it. In terms of the visa question that you were asking the last guest, I would just say I don't think it'll come up at the Prime Minister's level. No Prime Minister of India or any major country is going to ask for favors like that, right? Giving a visa is a prerogative of the country that gives the visas. And this might be discussed at the level of the External Affairs Ministry, and it'll be couched in very different language. Now India talks about mobility, doesn't talk about H-1Bs per se. So mobility is about the ability of skilled workers from anywhere to be able to work in the global marketplace. So that's how it'll all happen. I'm sure it'll come up at the delegation level talks.
Okay, so there has been a hug which has happened as well, and I would request the producers to put that on screen immediately. Soon after Prime Minister Modi entered the White House, there was a hug that happened between him and Donald Trump. Because that certainly has been the high point here, Jake Novak.
I'm sure it is. I mean, and that's not something Donald Trump does very often. He had to get over his aversion to shaking hands when he ran for president the first time. He didn't used to do that. Yeah, you don't see that very usually from Donald Trump. So that's awesome. That's a great shot. And I think this is the picture that President Trump really wants China to see. Get a good look at this, President Xi, because this is the kind of partnership and friendship and easy communication that these two men have, and that should make everyone else who are enemies of the United States and enemies of India take a big pause. Check this picture out very closely. I'm so glad you put it up, because This is important. And, I blame the United States for the last 20 years for not cultivating a strong enough relationship with India. Before that, I think it was India's fault mostly. But you know what? Both of those things are in our rearview mirror. That's gone. And we have important things to talk about. I agree with your last guest. We shouldn't focus too much on the tariff discussion because there are economic differences. There's always economic differences between one country and the next, even the best of friends. But I don't think President Trump is using tariffs for economic reasons. He's using tariffs, which are an economic tool, to give us a political result. And what I think he wants to do by having India come to the United States and start to ask about what it can do to reduce tariffs or any kind of issue between the United States and India economically, that will strengthen our political bond because that will prove that we're willing to cooperate on money, which is a pretty big deal. So I think this is a political goal more than an economic goal. And that is why the H-1B visa situation, I don't think is going to change all that much, especially if Donald Trump delivers to his base strong numbers on other economic problems. If he's able to give the American people good numbers on these deportations of the dangerous illegal immigrants that I was telling you about before, they're not going to be so angry anymore about H-1B visas. Because that's the first priority, these criminals, the violence, the migrants on the streets. That's not the H-1B visa issue, and Americans will be less concerned about that if we get rid of this bigger problem first.
Okay, but I'm looking at that picture, and it's right here on NDTV. A word on this, personal chemistry that we are seeing, Jake Novak. What a shot here.
Yeah, this is the kind of thing that obviously Donald Trump considers personal relationships and his ability to pick up a phone and talk to someone much more important than some of the policy issues on paper. I guess this is something that had to do with his years as a businessman and cultivating personal relationships. But for whatever reason, again, this is why it's such an important picture, because Donald Trump doesn't hug people in public. I mean, I can't think of too many times when I've ever seen that other than maybe his children. This is a really big deal. He doesn't really like to touch people all that much. He kind of had to get over that with the handshaking. So this is a major message. This is absolutely choreographed. I don't think it's phony. I'm not saying it's phony. What I'm saying is they made sure to do this in front of the cameras so that everyone could see it, especially China. And again, it was a little bit about what I was saying much earlier, which is I think that Prime Minister Modi's election was the beginning of a global movement towards what eventually led to President Trump a couple of years later and will lead to some other elections in other countries like Javier Milei in Argentina. I think that this is part of a movement, and in many ways, this started with you in India with the election of Narendra Modi. This is, to me, that was the real beginning of this movement. And maybe Donald Trump is more than just hugging him. He's hugging that trend in this picture more than anything else. But either way,
and Jake Novak, what we can tell our viewers is also this is behind the scenes in the West Wing lobby, where reporters welcomed Prime Minister Modi to the White House. So those were the moments where Prime Minister Modi was welcomed by President Trump, and you are calling it choreographed. I would say that this is essentially a picture of a great dialogue which is happening.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when I said choreographed, I meant I think they made sure that people saw it. I think it's real sentiment between the two of them. But they could have waited until all the cameras were gone and people weren't around, right? So that's fantastic that they did this. But look, you have a situation now where we are facing a completely different world than even just 3 years ago or 4 years ago. This is like, it's not just that Trump is different from what he was in 2016. The world is different. We've changed on many different levels. The masks are off. We've had major terrorist attacks in this country in the United States. We didn't have that in this country. After 2001, we didn't have a rash of terrorist attacks in this country for a long time. We're having that again. We're dealing with major inflation in this country, which is the very, very dangerous trend. People are spending $8 in US to buy a carton of eggs when we're used to paying sometimes less than $2 just not that long ago. So it's a different world. We must focus on trade. We must focus on getting our costs down. And at the same time, I think most of the American people now, especially since COVID, see China as more than just a potential economic power that could hurt us economically. They see them now as a true dangerous entity in this country. And India, our relationship with India is essential to push back on that. We don't have many other choices.
So let's try and dip into the audio that is coming in there.
हो रही है। मैं आपके इस भव्य विजय के लिए आपको बहुत बहुत बधाई देता हूं। न सिर्फ मेरी तरफ से 140 करोड़ भारतवासियों की तरफ से आपको मैं बहुत बहुत बधाई देता हूं और बहुत बहुत शुभकामनाएं देता हूं।
Your Excellency, I'm delighted to see you back in the White House and to meet with you today in this room. On behalf of 1.4 billion people of India, let me convey my heartiest congratulations to you on your grand and historic victory.
ये बहुत ही सुखद संयोग है कि भारत की जनता ने 60 साल के बाद किसी प्रधानमंत्री को तीसरी बार लगातार देश की सेवा करने का अवसर दिया है और मेरे लिए खुशी की बात है कि मुझे इस कार्यकाल में राष्ट्रपति ट्रंप के साथ फिर एक बार कार्य करने का अवसर मिला है। मैं कह सकता हूं कि राष्ट्रपति ट्रंप के पहले 4 वर्ष का मेरा जो अनुभव था, जो गर्मजोशी थी, जो उत्साह था, जो विश्वास था, वही गर्मजोशी, वही उत्साह, वही विश्वास के साथ हम फिर एक बार साथ मिलकर के आगे बढ़ेंगे।
Last year, the people of India gave me the opportunity to serve them for the 3rd consecutive time, and it has happened in the history of India in the last 60 years for the first time. And in this term, I will have an opportunity to work with you over the next 4 years, and it's a great pleasure to see the two coincide. And I can say from my past experience of working with you in your first term that we will continue to advance the India-US strategic partnership with the same warmth, with the same trust, and with the same excitement.
और मेरे लिए खुशी की बात है कि आते ही राष्ट्रपति ट्रंप ने एक मित्र के तरह मुझे पुराने अहमदाबाद के स्टेडियम की याद दिलाई। ये बात सही है कि ह्यूस्टन में हाउडी मोदी और गुजरात में अहमदाबाद में नमस्ते ट्रंप, वो दो एक ऐसी बहुत बड़े विशाल कार्यक्रम रहे जिसकी गूंज आज भी भारत के हर कोने में सुनाई दे रही है।
I'm happy that as soon as I entered this room, my friend reminded me of Ahmedabad and the cricket stadium where we held the big rally, and the events that we did, the mega events that we did in Ahmedabad, Namaste Trump, or the Howdy Modi in Houston. We had conveyed a very strong message of our friendship through those events, and the resounding echo of those events can be heard even today in India and the world.
भारत अमेरिका संबंधों को प्रगाढ़ बनाने में, उसको एक नई ऊंचाई देने में और व्यापकता देने में राष्ट्रपति ट्रंप की पहली टर्म की बहुत बड़ी भूमिका रही है और मुझे विश्वास है कि दूसरे टर्म में भी हम उसी गति से आगे बढ़ेंगे।
Excellency, you made immense personal contribution towards strengthening of our relations, towards making them more comprehensive, and in attaining unprecedented heights in our relationship. And I firmly believe that in your second term, we will work with even more speed.
और मैं जैसे भारत के नागरिकों को वादा किया है कि मैं तीसरे टर्म में 3 गुना गति से काम करूंगा, और मुझे विश्वास है कि राष्ट्रपति ट्रंप के साथ आने वाले 4 वर्ष हम भारत अमेरिका के संबंधों की गति में 2 गुना गति से काम करेंगे।
As I had promised to the people of India that in my 3rd term as the Prime Minister of India, we will work with thrice the speed. I firmly believe that with President Trump, during the next 4 years, during his 2nd term, we will work with twice the speed that we did in the 1st term.
मैं राष्ट्रपति ट्रंप से एक बात हमेशा अप्रिशिएट करता आया हूं, सीखता आया हूं कि वे राष्ट्रहित को सर्वोपरि रख करके काम करते हैं। राष्ट्रपति ट्रंप की तरह मुझे भी भारत के हितों को सर्वोपरि रखते हुए कार्य करना ये मेरे लिए सौभाग्य की बात है।
One thing that I deeply appreciate and I learned from President Trump is that he keeps the national interest supreme, and like him, I also keep the national interest of India at the top of everything else, and this has been my real fortune.
राष्ट्रपति ट्रंप की जब भी बात आती है तब मेक अमेरिका ग्रेट अगेन हर किसी को याद आता है, हर किसी को उससे प्रेरणा मिलती है। वैसे ही भारत में विकसित भारत 2047, जब भारत की आज़ादी के 100 साल होंगे, तब तक भारत को विकसित बनाने के उसको आज नई गति मिल रही है, नई ऊर्जा मिल रही है।
President Donald Trump and Make America Great Again are inseparable. Whenever we talk about President Trump, one has to talk about Make America Great Again. Similarly, that vision inspires everybody. Similarly, in India, we have the resolve of 1.4 billion people of India that by the time India reaches the 100th anniversary of its independence, we will make our country a developed country by 2047. And this is getting new speed and new resolve.
अमेरिका विश्व का सबसे पुराना लोकतंत्र, भारत विशाल लोकतंत्र, और इसलिए हम दोनों का मिलने का मतलब 1+1 2 नहीं, 1 और 1 11 होता है, और ये 11 की तख्ती वो ताकत विश्व के कल्याण के भी काम आएगी।
US is the world's oldest democracy, and India is the world's largest democracy. So when India and the US come together, they make 1+1 11 and not 2. And this is the power of 11 that is going to work for the welfare of the humanity.
मैं राष्ट्रपति ट्रंप का मेरे एक अच्छे मित्र का हृदय से आभार व्यक्त करता हूं कि हम फिर से एक बार प्रगति की राह पर नई ऊंचाइयों को छूने के लिए चल पड़ेंगे।
I once again thank my friend President Trump, and we together resolve that we will together march towards progress and towards prosperity for our nations.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And he's doing a great job in India. Everybody talks about it. He's doing a really fantastic job. A great leader. Great leader.
मोदी जी बहुत अच्छा काम कर रहे हैं भारत में, और हर कोई इसकी बात कर रहे हैं कि वे बहुत बड़े नेता हैं, बहुत महान नेता हैं।
मैं आपका बहुत आभारी हूं आपके इन शब्दों के लिए, और मुझे विश्वास है कि भारत का हर नागरिक आपकी इस भावना का आदर करता है।
I thank you for your warm words, Mr. President, and I firmly believe that every person in India respects your sentiments.
Thank you. Thank you very
Thank
much.
you. Thanks a lot.
Any questions, please?
Yes, President.
You are both very popular leaders in your respective countries. You've spoken about a common sense diplomatic doctrine. So what's a Trump-Modi doctrine that we should expect from the meetings today? Make our world better and safer.
Well, I think more than anything else will be the unity. We have great unity. We have great friendship, he and I and our countries. And I think it's only going to get closer. But it's very important that we remain united as countries. We're friends, and we're going to stay that way.
President, how are you going to fight China if you're going to be tough with India on trade? How are you going to beat China then?
We're in very good shape to beat anybody we want, but we're not looking to beat anybody. We're looking to do a really good job. We've done a fantastic job for the American people. We had a great 4 years, and we were interrupted by terrible administration, absolutely terrible. They didn't know what they were doing, and now we're putting it back together, and I think it's going to end up being much stronger than it was before, even much stronger than it was before.
May I? Yeah. President Trump, first of all, congratulations for the fantastic 24 days of your presidency. Historic and unprecedented decisions that you made, transformational reforms. I'm particularly impressed by the expose on USAID. And I would like you to share with us if you think USAID had a role in election interference in the US in 2020 and Indian elections in 2024.
So it could have had a role. There were a lot of bad things that happened in 2020. I think bad things happened in 2024, but it was too big to rig. We won by a tremendous margin. We won every swing state. We won the popular vote by millions of votes. So it was too big to rig. But yeah, I think they probably tried. We're looking to go to a system now much different, where one-day voting, voter ID, and we have to do that. And paper ballots. We want paper ballots. And when they do that, we're going to clean it up very, very well. But we had a great 2016. We had a much better 2020 election, but bad things happened. And we had the best of all. We had, they say, the most consequential in history, 129 years, most consequential. So it was a great election. And it gives me a chance to work again with the Prime Minister and India. We're going to have a great relationship together.
Mr. President, do you see, Mr. प्रधानमंत्री जी कल प्रेसिडेंट ट्रंप ने प्रेसिडेंट पुतिन से बात की है और युद्ध को रोकने की बात कही है आप हमेशा से सर
Do you see India playing a role in your plan to broker a peace in Ukraine? And if I could ask you about a development in hometown today, the U.S. attorney has resigned over the DOJ's request to drop the case into Eric Adams. Did you personally request the Justice Department to drop that case?
No, I didn't. I know nothing about it. I did not. I think that, just to answer your other question, we're just going to get along well. We're going to get along with all countries. We're going to do very well. We're going to be doing, I think, record business, record numbers. And we're going to work with India also. We have some very big trade deals to announce in the very near future.
प्रधानमंत्री जी कल प्रेसिडेंट ट्रंप ने प्रेसिडेंट पुतिन से बात की है आप दुनिया के अकेले ऐसे लीडर हैं जिन्होंने प्रेसिडेंट पुतिन से मीटिंग की है प्रेसिडेंट जेलेंस्की से मीटिंग की है पहले प्रेसिडेंट बाइडेन से मिले और अब प्रेसिडेंट ट्रंप से मिले आपको लग रहा है कि जिस शांति की बात आप करते आए थे उसमें अब भारत रूस और यूक्रेन को युद्ध खत्म कराने के लिए अमेरिका के साथ मिलकर कोई नया रास्ता बना सकता है और दूसरा प्रेसिडेंट ट्रंप भारत आने वाले हैं प्रेसिडेंट पुतिन भारत आने वाले हैं तो क्या भारत भूमि से शांति का संदेश जा सकता है And Mr. President, what you would like to say about the Bangladesh issue, because we saw and it is evident that how the deep state of United States was involved to regime change during the Biden administration, and then Mohammed Yunus made Junior Soros also. So what is your point of view about the Bangladesh?
And what is the role that the deep state played in the situation in Bangladesh?
Well, there was no role for our deep state. It was, this is something that the Prime Minister has been working on for a long time and has been worked on for hundreds of years, frankly. I've been reading about it. But I will leave Bangladesh to the Prime Minister.
जहाँ तक रूस और यूक्रेन के बीच का लड़ाई का सवाल है मुझे खुशी है कि राष्ट्रपति ट्रंप ने शांति के प्रयासों का इनिशिएटिव लेते हुए कल राष्ट्रपति पुतिन से बात की है दुनिया का एक सोच रही है कि भारत न्यूट्रल है भारत न्यूट्रल नहीं है भारत का अपना पक्ष है और भारत का पक्ष है शांति हम पहले दिन से ही और मैंने राष्ट्रपति पुतिन को उनकी मौजूदगी में मीडिया के सामने कहा था कि ये समय युद्ध का नहीं है और मेरा एक कन्विक्शन है कि समस्याओं का समाधान युद्ध के मैदानों में नहीं निकलता है वो टेबल पर चर्चा करके ही निकलता है
As far as the Russia-Ukraine conflict is concerned, I'm very happy that President Trump has taken initiatives to restore peace and had telephone calls with President Putin and President Zelensky. The world had this thinking that India somehow is a neutral country in this whole process, but this is not true. India has a side, and that side is of peace. From the very first day, I have been talking about the importance of dialogue and diplomacy and a peaceful solution. And when I met President Putin in the presence of media, I had told him that this is not the era of war, and I have firm conviction that problems cannot be resolved on the battlefield. The two sides will have to come to the negotiating table.
शांति के हर प्रयास का हम समर्थन करते हैं और राष्ट्रपति ट्रंप ने जो इनिशिएटिव लिया है मैं उनका हर सख्त समर्थन करता हूं
We support all efforts aimed at establishing peace. Can you let him translate, please? Trump has taken, we welcome it and support it.
I just want to add to that. We had a very good phone call yesterday with President Putin. It lasted maybe an hour and a half. It was excellent, and I think we went a long way toward getting a solution to the horrible war where so many people are being killed, especially soldiers on the battlefield. At least 1.5 million soldiers have been killed on a ridiculous war that would have never happened if I were president. But we've got a long way to, I think we've got a long way to solving it. Tomorrow there's a meeting in Munich, and then next week there's a meeting in Saudi Arabia, not with myself or President Putin, but with top officials. And Ukraine will be a part of it too. And we're going to see if we can end that war. That war is a horrible war. It's a vicious, bloody war. We want to end it. To your other question, that U.S. attorney was actually fired. I don't know if he or she resigned, but that U.S. attorney was fired. Okay, go ahead.
What is the role the Prime Minister the U.S. competition?
Wait, say it.
What is the role that you expect India to play vis-a-vis U.S. competition with China and in your broader vision for peace in the Middle East?
US or China ke competition?
Well, I think we're doing very well in our competition with everybody. I think you're going to see a nation that really is going forward at a very rapid pace. Our economy is going to be fantastic. We're doing things to make it that way. We announced some very big elements today of success. I call it an element of success. Reciprocal tariffs, so that somebody charges us, we charge them the same amount, which has never been done in our country before. We've always been taken advantage of by other countries, and we allowed that to happen foolishly, but we're not going to allow that any longer. So I think we're going to do very well. We've been doing they say the last 3 weeks was among the best 3 weeks ever for a start in a presidency. There's never been anything like it. And when you see what we've been able to do in 3 weeks, people are really amazed. Even the Prime Minister mentioned it. I think other countries are looking at it. But I just want to thank everybody for being here. This is a terrific man. We're going to make some wonderful trade deals for India and for the U.S. And thank you all very much. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Thank you, everybody.
Quickly, guys, come on, please. Quickly out this way. Quickly, guys. Come on, quickly out this way. Come on, guys.
Mr. Modi, they're reiterating that this is not an era of war message. Mr. Modi said that we are not neutral in the war which is happening between Russia and Ukraine. We are on the side of the peace. He went on to say that he's happy that President Trump has initiated peace efforts, and Donald Trump said, we'll do record business deals with India. I think that certainly is one of the key takeaways of this briefing which happened at the White House just a few minutes ago. I had told President Putin this is not the time for war, is what Prime Minister Modi has said inside the Oval Office. He went on to say that will there be some kind of Trump-Modi doctrine, great friendship, and they aim to remain united, is what President Trump said. Donald Trump calls Prime Minister Modi a great leader. So I think Jake Novak, certainly a huge message coming in from Donald Trump. We have seen that chemistry play out. It's a repetition of that chemistry, I would say, more of a continuity, despite we looking at a completely different administration of Donald Trump. Mr. Novak. Okay. Seema, if you would like to weigh in on this, what we heard right now.
Both the Prime Minister and the President were, saying the right things. And the fact that Mr. Modi came out very strongly in favor of President Trump's efforts to end the Ukraine war tells you everything. I think there is a lot of synergy, and perhaps there could be a role for India. We don't know. But one thing is clear. that the two men, they get along quite well. And Trump took, used very good words to describe Mr. Modi, and so did the Prime Minister, calling him an inspiration and things like that. So, all good so far. And for the president to say that we're going to make deals with India, trade deals with India, that's another indication that something is afoot.
Yes, and very interestingly, Donald Trump almost steered clear of the issue of tariffs. And just minutes ago, we had heard about that order, a memo of sort which has been signed by him for a study on the trade imbalances. So I think it's very clear what we have been discussing, Seema, that they have hit all the right notes. Tick box, or everything that went right, complete synergy, a lot of praises for each other, because these are leaders who have just fought elections and they have returned to power. So I think that people's strength, when you come after winning elections and you have the power or support of their own people, that is on visible, that's clearly visible here.
Right. I think it's very clear that President Trump sort of appreciates and understands the importance of winning an Indian election. And for the Prime Minister to make it a talking point was also interesting, to point it out again and to remind the audience that this has happened for the first time in 60 years and for the second time, to be perfectly frank, since India's independence. But he very cleverly used the number of years as 60. But there's one thing I want to point out about tariffs and trades and things like that. On January 20th, when Trump assumed office, there was a America First memo, executive order that was issued, which directed the Secretary of Commerce, Secretary of State, and I think also the Treasury Secretary to study trade issues and to find out who is doing what, which country is doing what. They are to submit a report by April 1. Now, today's order or memo also gives a little bit of time. I think this is all very significant. This is a negotiating tactic. I'm now pretty sure of that. So to make it a point, the day the Prime Minister is here, and to emphasize it, to make that point again 1 hour before he is to meet the Prime Minister, is all a tactic. And sure enough, the Indian side and other countries have responded to this tactic. The Mexican president agreed, in order to delay tariffs on her country, she agreed to put 10,000 troops on the southern border to stop illegal migration and to stop the flows of fentanyl. So this is all so far working quite well for Mr. Trump. This is not to say that India shouldn't lower its tariffs, because in some cases they are quite high. They need to be rationalized, and but somehow, India has taken a very long time to even accept the idea.
Yes, and Seema, I tend to agree with your analysis completely. The emphasis which both the leaders have paid, particularly on ending the war. Prime Minister Modi reiterating this is not an era of war, something that he has been saying for the last 2 years. So in fact, Nikunj Garg, who was present at the Oval Office when this press conference of sorts played out, Nikunj, they said the right things, complete synergy on display here. what was visible here was two men getting along perfectly. You know, as someone who watched this entire chemistry play out, what do you think are the big takeaways?
Well, Maria, I would say actually the chemistry between the two leaders played out astoundingly well. It's rare that at the level that they are engaging and right at the very top of the superstructures that they had, that two people can get so candid and so friendly and so emphatically back each other's views so very quickly. Remember, this is just the beginning of the Trump 2.0. And he himself said that, you know, in the last 4 years that I was out of office, I learned how not to do a lot of things in my life. So that's a learning of a 78-year-old man. Quite clearly, he has had those rough 4 years. But coming back to the Oval Office, Mr. Trump appears to be far more, I would say, a far more sophisticated man than what he was in his first innings. And quickly realizing the importance of the relationship with India, he has invited Prime Minister Modi, and he was completely, you know, I would say, complete freewheeling compliment that he gave to Prime Minister Modi was almost amazing to watch. He said Mr. Modi is a great leader. He's doing a lot of work back home in India, and he's doing a lot of good work for the benefit of his people. So I think that was quite complimentary. Prime Minister reciprocated those compliments by saying that, you know, whenever we think of President Trump, we think of Make America Great Again movement. And that movement also inspires us back in India to do things for our own people. Some very emphatic commentary there coming from the Prime Minister also. He not only reiterated the fact that people should not mistake India's stance on Russia-Ukraine war as being neutral. He said, I told President Putin in presence of the press, emphasizing that point, in presence of the press, that this is not the era of war. And therefore, the solutions to problems will come on the negotiating table and not in the lands of war. So that was quite an emphatic commentary coming from the Prime Minister ahead of that Munich conference also that is scheduled to happen sometime tomorrow. Prime Minister also emphasized on the fact that when it comes to the betterment of the ties, he would want to go extra mile, and he would want to ensure that these ties are deepened, that these ties are extended to the areas that they have currently not extended to. And he also emphasized on the fact that India as a country is a very responsible nation which would want to work for the welfare and welfareism of a large section of people, not only just in India, but across the geography. So I think that was a message which was coming loud and clear from the Prime Minister's commentary. President Trump, of course, there were some very stirring moments when a domestic question was asked. Again, going back to his familiar ways, said that attorney was fired and he didn't resign. I don't know who gave you the information that he or she resigned. So apart from that moments of domestic unease, or so to say, he was quite characteristically emphatic, I must say, in the comments that he made, and made it very clear. On interesting two questions on Bangladesh and China also taken, Maria, there. On China, he said that we are not working against any country. We're just trying to ensure that nobody takes unfair advantage of us, and America is not short of any. Also, we have done some great work as far as ensuring a fair treatment to the American interest is concerned. On Bangladesh, quite a tricky question was asked, which President Trump very quite clearly indicated that India is a leading power in that area, and India has had historical ties in that region, going much before the partition of Bangladesh, partition of India as such, and he said that that's where the Prime Minister has been working, and Prime Minister will continue to work. America does not have much of a role to play there. So quite clearly, calming those anxious nerves there, if anybody was expecting him to talk anything related to Bangladesh, and which could have been sort of seen as America meddling in India's backwaters. So I think, quite very emphatic, very categorical, very friendly and very warm comments coming from both the leaders. If you watch it closely, to see two leaders, as I said, of two great powers working so closely. Prime Minister did mention about the strength of the democracies, about the oldest democracy in United States of America and the largest or the biggest democracy, India. And he did say that in relations of these countries lie the larger good of the world. So I would say that overall, a very positive sentiment emerging out of that press conference, and overall a very positive commentary coming out from both the leaders as far as not only bilateral relations but multilateral facets of this relationship is concerned.
And Nikunj, very interestingly, both leaders highlighted their electoral successes. The victories that they have had just a few months ago. Prime Minister Modi talking about he returning to power, I mean, third term, never before it has happened in Indian history in 60 years. And Donald Trump also talking about his success, the popular vote that he has polled.
And that's what the democracies are all about, Maria, aren't they? I mean, the fact remains that democratically elected leaders get their biggest adrenaline rush from the votes that they are able to secure, particularly when it is about multiple terms. It's not just about the first term. In case of Mr. Trump, this is the second term, and as he himself admitted that he has had very rough 4 years out of power. In case of Mr. Modi, it's quite historic in any case, and Prime Minister emphasized on that fact that, in the last 60 years, no Prime Minister has been re-voted to power third term, and that too with a convincing and absolutely safe and secure mandate. So democratically elected leaders do take a great amount of pride in that fact, and therefore there's nothing surprising, I would say, there. But nonetheless, they did mention that part, and you've made a very quite an observation about the democracies being at play, being at work there, as far as in their own minds and their own construct of public perception goes. Because remember, they know that their remarks are being broadcast across the globe, and whatever each word that they utter here, each word that they mention here would be dissected very, very closely, and meanings drawn out of those words. So quite clearly, conscious of that fact, both of them did not let the opportunity go to emphasize the fact that they have huge, massive, popular mandates behind them, despite this not being their first term and each having multiple terms in office by now.
Nikunj, a word now, what happens next? So this played out in full public view in the presence of the entire media, which had lots to ask to both the leaders. And we have a rather interesting visual coming in. President Donald Trump standing behind Prime Minister Modi and, helping him move his chair a bit. So, in terms of chemistry also, the chemistry, the ambience, everything seems to be working just perfectly.
Yeah. Well, Maria, if my audio is clear to you, the fact that the entire delegation on both sides were present there during the entire press interaction also is indication of the fact that they are carrying on from there with business as usual, in the sense that as what is required to be done ahead now from here on at the delegation level will be done. And obviously the press corps was there right at the beginning of the interaction. Both leaders made out their statement. Prime Minister made quite an elaborate statement about his interactions in the past with President Trump. And then they took a whole host of questions from the press corps. Both the Prime Minister and the President answered those questions. Now, of course, the important part, the trying to ensure that the real business talk go on as is required and as the dimensions of this relationship, the depth of this relationship demand. So that part has begun, and I think there's an allotted hour, but as is with as is the case with most of the situations and things, may not get closed by the appointed hour for this delegation and government talks. After that, they address the press once more in a larger pool this time. I mean, other than Oval Office, their address would also now be in the White House public press conference area, where both the leaders will emerge and try to answer the questions on talks that have happened thus far. Maria?
So much for joining us. Let's play that conversation out for our viewers again. Prime Minister Modi and Donald Trump, what did they say? They complimented each other. They, hailed India-US ties and spoke about great things about each other. Let's listen in.
एक्सेलेंसी, मैं सबसे पहले तो फिर एक बार आपको यहाँ पर देख करके और आपको यहाँ पर मिल करके बहुत प्रसन्नता हो रही है। मैं आपके इस भव्य विजय के लिए आपको बहुत बहुत बधाई देता हूँ। न सिर्फ मेरी तरफ से, 140 करोड़ भारतवासियों की तरफ से आपको मैं बहुत बहुत बधाई देता हूँ और बहुत बहुत शुभकामनाएं देता हूँ। ये बहुत ही सुखद संयोग है कि भारत की जनता ने 60 साल के बाद किसी प्रधानमंत्री को तीसरी बार लगातार देश की सेवा करने का अवसर दिया है। और मेरे लिए खुशी की बात है कि मुझे इस कार्यकाल में राष्ट्रपति ट्रंप के साथ फिर एक बार कार्य करने का अवसर मिला है। मैं कह सकता हूं कि राष्ट्रपति ट्रंप के पहले 4 वर्ष का मेरा जो अनुभव था, जो गर्मजोशी थी, जो उत्साह था, जो विश्वास था, वही गर्मजोशी, वही उत्साह, वही विश्वास के साथ हम फिर एक बार साथ मिलकर के आगे बढ़ेंगे। और मेरे लिए खुशी की बात है कि आते ही राष्ट्रपति ट्रंप ने एक मित्र की तरह मुझे पुराने अहमदाबाद के स्टेडियम की याद दिलाई। ये बात सही है कि ह्यूस्टन में हाउडी मोदी और गुजरात में अहमदाबाद में नमस्ते ट्रंप, वो दो एक ऐसी बहुत बड़े विशाल कार्यक्रम रहे जिसकी गूंज आज भी भारत के हर कोने में सुनाई दे रही है। भारत अमेरिका संबंधों को प्रगाढ़ बनाने में, उसको एक नई ऊंचाई देने में और व्यापकता देने में राष्ट्रपति ट्रंप की पहली टर्म की बहुत बड़ी भूमिका रही है। और मुझे विश्वास है कि दूसरे टर्म में भी हम उसी गति से आगे बढ़ेंगे। और मैं जैसे भारत के नागरिकों को वादा किया है कि मैं तीसरे टर्म में 3 गुना गति से काम करूंगा। और मुझे विश्वास है कि राष्ट्रपति ट्रंप के साथ आने वाले 4 वर्ष हम भारत अमेरिका के संबंधों की गति में 2 गुना गति से काम करेंगे। मैं राष्ट्रपति ट्रंप से एक बात हमेशा अप्रिशिएट करता आया हूं, सीखता आया हूं कि वे राष्ट्रहित को सर्वोपरि रख करके काम करते हैं। राष्ट्रपति ट्रंप की तरह मुझे भी भारत के हितों को सर्वोपरि रखते हुए कार्य करना, ये मेरे लिए सौभाग्य की बात है। राष्ट्रपति ट्रंप की जब भी बात आती है तब मेक अमेरिका ग्रेट अगेन हर किसी को याद आता है, हर किसी को उससे प्रेरणा मिलती है। वैसे ही भारत में विकसित भारत 2047, जब भारत की आज़ादी के 100 साल होंगे, तब तक भारत को विकसित बनाने के उसको आज नई गति मिल रही है, नई ऊर्जा मिल रही है। अमेरिका विश्व का सबसे पुराना लोकतंत्र, भारत विशाल लोकतंत्र, और इसलिए हम दोनों का मिलने का मतलब 1+1 2 नहीं, 1 और 1 11 होता है। और ये 11 की तख्ती, वो ताकत विश्व के कल्याण के भी काम आएगी। मैं राष्ट्रपति ट्रंप का, मेरे एक अच्छे मित्र का हृदय से आभार व्यक्त करता हूं कि हम फिर से एक बार प्रगति की राह पर नई ऊंचाइयों को छूने के लिए चल पड़ेंगे।
And joining us on this special broadcast is Derek Grossman, who is the senior defense analyst at Rand Corporation. John is commentator on U.S. national security, joining me from Washington, D.C. We also have Pramit, co-founder, director of Boston Center of Excellence. Pramit, beginning with you, there was a lot of anticipation as to what will happen, what will go wrong. Here are the two leaders striking all the right notes, saying all the right things, celebrating each other, quite literally. A lot of warmth, a lot of bonhomie on display.
Whatever you have seen in last 1 hour, I think we are seeing since morning, both the delegations seem to be quite at ease. There was no tension per se, although people were talking about tariffs and trades and some tensions. But looking at the delegations' body language, I think, and whatever we are informally discussing with them, they were quite at ease. And you have seen that immediately both the president and the prime minister, they gave a very warm hug to each other as they saw each other. And then after that, they also went into the memory lane of discussing about the Howdy Modi program, which was a massive success in Houston, and President Trump was extremely delighted in that event. After that, they also talked about the Namaste Trump program. So I think both the president and the prime minister had a great rapport and a great chemistry, and that is making the entire delegation on each side at ease. And the chemistry and the rapport that they have developed in the Trump 1.0, I think that is going to continue. And whatever we are talking about, the important issues about the trade, tariff, and immigration, I think it is important. But looking at the other trade imbalances between the Canada and America and Mexico and India, I think the imbalance numbers are much higher. Like if you look at it, the Canada versus America, I think there is Canada sells more than $200 billion worth of good more than what America sells to Canada. When it comes to Mexico, it is almost $250 billion trade imbalance. But when you look at India, although India is such a massive country, but it is still 35, somewhere around that. So it is important to talk about tariff and trade balance, but for India and America, that's not a major issue. And as both of them said, that the oldest democracy and the largest democracy going to come together, and our Prime Minister has very nicely put it together that 1 + 1 in our case is not going to be 2, it's going to be 11. And the excellent relationship that we will see on display and the work that will be delivered by this collaboration will be twice the speed as what they did before.
Yes, 1 + 1 is 11. That's, quintessential Prime Minister Narendra Modi when it is about that word play, which he often does. So, Derek, come in now. The question is that this was the meeting of democracies. The two leaders who have returned to power after massive successes electorally. That's what they realize, that they have the popular mandate with them. Be it on the issue of the Russia-Ukraine war, Prime Minister Modi reiterating his famous statement of that this is not an era of war, but he also said that President Trump's efforts at ending war has to be really, complimented. But at the same time, he also, when it came to Bangladesh, realizing fully that India, it's in the neighborhood, President Trump passed it on to, Prime Minister Modi, saying that as far as this issue is concerned, it is for Mr. Modi to speak on it.
Yeah, no, I think that's right. I mean, this is really kind of a very important moment here with Trump and Modi meeting to pick up where they left off during Trump's first administration, but also, of course, now we have Russia's invasion of Ukraine and how to finally get to some sort of peace in that region. And Trump has been pretty, forward-leaning in terms of trying to negotiate a peace between Russia and Ukraine. And I think India can play a pretty significant role in that if it so chooses. And it's interesting that Modi reiterated his point about this is not the era for war, that he conveyed that to Putin. And also, he is once again reiterating, that India is on the side of peace. It's not neutral per se, it's on the side of peace. And how do we get to peace? Well, that involves diplomatic negotiations. And I think Trump and Modi are really going to be on the same page when it comes to that. When it comes to Bangladesh, I mean, we'll kind of see if there's anything in the readout on it. But I think it's a pretty sensitive issue. My sense of it is that that the United States, under the Trump administration, is going to side with Modi in terms of not engaging the U.S. government as much as, say, Biden did. But this is all relative, right? That doesn't mean that the U.S. is going to ignore Bangladesh or anything like that. At least I don't presume that. But I do think that there is going to be sort of a downplaying of that issue, among other issues, that could cause friction within the U.S.-India strategic partnership.
John, for you, what stood out?
Well, I think that when it comes to Trump, he's looking to achieve peace in Ukraine, and India, being a longtime partner of Russia, has a degree of leverage over Russia when it comes to achieving his desired goal of peace in Ukraine. So I think that this is the beginning of a fruitful partnership. Trump and Modi were fairly close in the first Trump term. And the United States and India have a lot in common when it comes to deterring China. And of course, President Trump wants to work with Modi to reduce India's tariffs so that he doesn't move forward with a reciprocal tariff so that we can improve our trading relationship. But I think that in contrast with the prior administration that was very anti-India, we will see a stronger relationship in this new term between the U.S. and India.
Okay, so let's listen in now to what Donald Trump said in that brief interaction that he and Prime Minister Modi had in Oval Office in the presence of the entire media contingent.
Well, I think more than anything else will be the unity. We have great unity. We have great friendship, he and I and our countries. And I think it's only going to get closer. But it's very important that we remain united as countries. We're friends, and we're going to stay that way.
President Trump, how are you going to fight China if you're going to be tough with India on trade? How are you going to beat China then?
We're in very good shape to beat anybody we want, but we're not looking to beat anybody. We're looking to do a really good job. We've done a fantastic job for the American people. We had a great 4 years, and we were interrupted by terrible administration, absolutely terrible. They didn't know what they were doing, and now we're putting it back together, and I think it's going to end up being much stronger than it was before, even much stronger than it was before.
May I? Yeah. President Trump, first of all, congratulations for the fantastic 24 days of your presidency. Historic and unprecedented decisions that you made, transformational reforms. I'm particularly impressed by the expose on USAID. And I would like you to share with us if you think USAID had a role in election interference in the US in 2020 and Indian elections in 2024.
So it could have had a role. There were a lot of bad things that happened in 2020. I think bad things happened in 2024, but it was too big to rig. We won by a tremendous margin. We won every swing state. We won the popular vote by millions of votes. So it was too big to rig. But yeah, I think they probably tried. We're looking to go to a system now much different, where one-day voting, voter ID, and we have to do that. And paper ballots. We want paper ballots. And when they do that, we're going to clean it up very, very well. But we had a great 2016. We had a much better 2020 election, but bad things happened. And we had the best of all. We had, they say, the most consequential in history, 129 years, most consequential. So it was a great election. And it gives me a chance to work again with the Prime Minister and India. And we're going to have a great relationship together.
Mr. Prime Minister, Mr. Prime Minister,
प्रधानमंत्री जी, कल प्रेसिडेंट ट्रंप ने प्रेस प्रेसिडेंट पुतिन से बात की है और युद्ध को रोकने की बात करी है, आप हमेशा से सर
Do you see India playing a role in your plan to broker a peace in Ukraine? And if I could ask you about a development in hometown today, the U.S. attorney has resigned over the DOJ's request to drop the case into Eric Adams. Did you personally request the Justice Department to drop that case?
No, I didn't. I know nothing about it. I did not. I think that, just to answer your other question, we're just going to get along well. We're going to get along with all countries. We're going to do very well. We're going to be doing, I think, record business, record numbers. And we're going to work with India also. We have some very big trade deals to announce in the very near future.
Mr. Prime Minister, प्रेसिडेंट पुतिन से बात की है. आप दुनिया के अकेले ऐसे लीडर हैं जिन्होंने प्रेसिडेंट पुतिन से मीटिंग की है, प्रेसिडेंट जेलेंस्की से मीटिंग की है, पहले प्रेसिडेंट बाइडेन से मिले और अब प्रेसिडेंट ट्रंप से मिले. आपको लग रहा है कि जिस शांति की बात आप करते आए थे, उसमें अब भारत रूस और यूक्रेन को युद्ध खत्म कराने के लिए अमेरिका के साथ मिलकर कोई नया रास्ता बना सकता है? और दूसरा, प्रेसिडेंट ट्रंप भारत आने वाले हैं, प्रेसिडेंट पुतिन भारत आने वाले हैं, तो क्या भारत भूमि से शांति का संदेश जा सकता है? And Mr. President, what you would like to say about the Bangladesh issue, because we saw and it is evident that how the deep state of United States was involved in regime change during the Biden administration, and then Mohammed Yunus made Junior Soros also. So what is your point of view about the Bangladesh?
Soros, and what is the role that the deep state played in the situation in Bangladesh?
Well, there was no role for our deep state. It was. This is something that the Prime Minister has been working on for a long time and has been worked on for hundreds of years, frankly. I've been reading about it. But I will leave Bangladesh to the Prime Minister.
जहाँ तक रूस और यूक्रेन के बीच का लड़ाई का सवाल है, मुझे खुशी है कि राष्ट्रपति ट्रंप ने शांति के प्रयासों का इनिशिएटिव लेते हुए कल राष्ट्रपति पुतिन से बात की है. दुनिया का एक सोच रही है कि भारत न्यूट्रल है. भारत न्यूट्रल नहीं है. भारत का अपना पक्ष है और भारत का पक्ष है शांति. हम पहले दिन से ही, और मैंने राष्ट्रपति पुतिन को उनकी मौजूदगी में मीडिया के सामने कहा था कि ये समय युद्ध का नहीं है, और मेरा एक कन्विक्शन है कि समस्याओं का समाधान युद्ध के मैदानों में नहीं निकलता है, वो टेबल पर चर्चा करके ही निकलता है.
As far as the Russia-Ukraine conflict is concerned, I'm very happy that President Trump has taken initiatives to restore peace and had telephone calls with President Putin and President Zelensky. The world had this thinking that India somehow is a neutral country in this whole process, but this is not true. India has a side, and that side is of peace. From the very first day, I have been talking about the importance of dialogue and diplomacy and a peaceful solution. And when I met President Putin in the presence of media, I had told him that this is not the era of war, and I have firm conviction that problems cannot be resolved on the battlefield. The two sides will have to come to the negotiating table.
शांति के हर प्रयास का हम समर्थन करते हैं, और राष्ट्रपति ट्रंप ने जो इनिशिएटिव लिया है, मैं उनका हर सख्त समर्थन करता हूं.
Can you let him translate, please? Just wait.
I just want to add to that. We had a very good phone call yesterday with President Putin. It lasted maybe an hour and a half. It was excellent, and I think we went a long way toward getting a solution to the horrible war where so many people are being killed, especially soldiers on the battlefield. At least 1.5 million soldiers have been killed on a ridiculous war that would have never happened if I were president. But we've got a long way to, I think we've got a long way to solving it. Tomorrow there's a meeting in Munich, and then next week there's a meeting in Saudi Arabia, not with myself or President Putin, but with top officials. And Ukraine will be a part of it too. And we're going to see if we can end that war. That war is a horrible war. It's a vicious, bloody war. We want to end it. To your other question, that U.S. attorney was actually fired. I don't know. he or she resigned, but that U.S. attorney was fired. Okay, go ahead.
Mr. President, what is the role?
Mr. Prime Minister, I have a question. The
US competition with China.
Say
What
it.
is the role that you expect India to play vis-a-vis US competition with China and in your broader vision for peace in the Middle East?
Well, I think we're doing very well in our competition with everybody. I think you're going to see a nation that really is going forward at a very rapid pace. Our economy is going to be fantastic. We're doing things to make it that way. And we announced some very big elements today of success. I call it an element of success. Reciprocal tariffs, so that somebody charges us, we charge them the same amount, which has never been done in our country before. We've always been taken advantage of by other countries, and we allow that to happen foolishly, but we're not going to allow that any longer. So I think we're going to do very well. We've been doing they say the last 3 weeks was among the best 3 weeks ever for a start in a presidency. There's never been anything like it. And when you see what we've been able to do in 3 weeks, people are really amazed. Even the Prime Minister mentioned it. I think other countries are looking at it. But I just want to thank everybody for being here. This is a terrific man. We're going to make some wonderful trade deals for India and for the U.S. And thank you all very much. Thank you.
Gotta stand up. You're on my
We have the first set of visuals coming in now. So this is from a different angle, perhaps some gifting of sorts which is happening there. Interesting visuals. We will make great trade deals. That's what Donald Trump has said, and he has hailed Prime Minister Modi as a great leader. Prime Minister Modi, remember, is one of the first global leaders to travel to the United States for an official visit and meet Donald Trump after his electoral win. The two leaders are holding bilaterals even as we speak, and they're discussing a whole gamut of ties. The focus, of course, is on trade and other aspects of convergences. The joint statement is going to come in any moment now. A quick break and then we return.
Mahakumbh, a festival of faith, the world's biggest spiritual festival, the divine dip at the spiritual Sangam, a sacred confluence of faith, culture and heritage. NDTV's mega coverage of the Mega Fest. NDTV at Mahakumbh 2025.
As India accelerates its growth towards self-reliance, India Inc. is leading the charge. From market dominance to manufacturing, from AI breakthroughs to disruptive innovations, India is setting the roadmap for a Viksit Bharat. Join us as business leaders, policymakers and ministers come together at the NDTV Profit Conclave 2025, the blueprint for Viksit Bharat, February 18th, 10 a.m. onwards. Tune in only on the NDTV network.
I've been reporting on all issues big and small from Andhra Pradesh, Telangana, rest of South India, bringing you all the action, all that you need to know, all that you want to know.
The energy of Maximum City is infectious. I bring in that energy in our news coverage from financial capital Mumbai.
Covering from the southernmost part of India over the last 23 years, I bring in-depth and 360-degree coverage from the Dravidian heartland.
The land of Mishti is also known for its bitter politics. I have seen much water flow under the Howrah Bridge, covering Bengal in all its vivid colors.
This week on India Ascends.
We decode the ins and outs of the historic PM Modi President Trump meet. Mumbai to Marseille, why IMEC is poised to bring the global north and south together, and how BrahMos missile is pushing India to the forefront of military innovation and reshaping global defense dynamics.
All this and more only on India Ascends with me, Gauri Dwivedi, at these timings on the NDTV network.
Big budget day. Big newsmakers on NDTV. Top ministers and opposition leaders.
ये by the people, of the people and for the people budget.
It is a fulfilling budget.
This is a development budget.
It's one of the finest budgets I've ever seen.
More than a bold move, it is a clever move.
NDTV, always the first choice of newsmaker. NDTV keeps you ahead.
There is a growing realization across the global capitals that this is a relationship which is fast moving beyond the pale of bilateralism into truly a force for global good.
Looking ahead to Prime Minister Modi's visit here to Washington, D.C. as he meets with President Donald Trump.
I do think, though, there are real opportunities for the U.S. and India to work together.
I think you look at both President Trump and Prime Minister Modi as leaders that really want to bring an end to wars, and particularly the war in Ukraine.
It's a short visit, but it's a visit of consequence. This is Nikunj Garg reporting for NDTV from Washington, D.C.
Mahakumbh, the festival of faith, the world's biggest spiritual festival, the divine dip at the spiritual Sangam, a sacred confluence of faith, culture and heritage. NDTV's mega coverage of the Mega Fest. NDTV at Mahakumbh 2025.
As India accelerates its growth towards self-reliance, India Inc. is leading the charge. From market dominance to manufacturing, from AI breakthroughs to disruptive innovations, India is setting the roadmap for a Viksit Bharat. Join us.
And let's go straight to Washington, D.C. In fact, inside the White House. That's where Prime Minister Narendra Modi and President Trump will be standing by in just a few minutes, where they will be sharing the joint statement. The two leaders did shake hands. They hugged each other before they sat together and addressed the international press at the White House immediately before holding bilateral talks. They are at present holding bilateral talks. A lot of bonhomie on display. A lot of compliments that the two leaders exchanged as well. So, right thing said, complete synergy, which was what we saw, Prime Minister Modi telling Donald Trump that he appreciates President Trump and all his efforts in ensuring that there would be some peace between Russia and Ukraine. President Donald Trump calling Prime Minister Modi a great leader. So certainly when it comes to using the right phrases, the right words, everything was on display. Great friendship between two nations, two democracies, one largest democracy, the oldest democracy, was something that we saw. The one question certainly that comes to my mind here, if I may bring in Pramit now. Pramit, one thought certainly that came to my mind was that a few minutes ago there was this entire memorandum which was signed by Donald Trump. There was a lot of surround sound around it. Okay, in fact, Jessica is joining us. Jessica, how is this bilateral being read by journalists like you?
certainly came with some surprise after all of the signaling that this would in fact be an imposition of tariffs today. I'm just reading through and seeing some press outlets still haven't caught up to what we've been reporting, which is that this was a memorandum directing a 6-month study of reciprocal tariffs, and certainly an endorsement of their use, but not an imposition of their use, which is a far cry from what we thought we were getting when we saw that Truth Social post early this morning. But upon reflection, I think it's a recognition again of sort of the art of Donald Trump and the way that we have to cover him very skeptically. That words really matter. That he tends to be loose sometimes with his definitions of words. For example, today he called something a press conference that was not a press conference. It was certainly a press availability, but a press conference has a more formal definition and certainly has more pageantry, which is what we're seeing being organized behind me in the East Wing of the White House now. So I just think it reminded me of the first Trump term and all of the careful ways in which we need to interpret what we're getting and continue to ask questions for interpretation. And that's something we'll have to continue to do as we cover this administration, because there is a lot of intent and a lot of ideas at this White House, and certainly a lot of speed with which they want to act. But the implementation guidance is not always there. We'll have to see what kind of implementation suggestions and proposals come out of this 6-month review. I'll be very curious to see where those recommendations want the reciprocal tariffs to start, what goods are impacted, what trade flows could be impacted. I mean, this approach opens up a lot more reporting possibilities and a lot more questions, really, than it answers.
Okay, Jessica, on the question about tariffs and possible trade deals, Donald Trump said, Prime Minister Modi is a great leader, adding we are going to make some wonderful trade deals for the India and the United States.
Yeah, I mean, it's classic Trump, right? It's how he talks about...
Okay, so let's go straight to White House. Jessica, please, I'm sorry, I'll have to stop you there because the visuals are now coming in for the joint statement.
I'm thrilled to welcome the Prime Minister of India, my friend, Narendra Modi, back to the White House. We spent a lot of time here and a lot of time in India, and he's a very special man. Prime Minister, it is a pleasure to extend to you the same hospitality that you showed Melania and myself when we traveled to your beautiful country 5 years ago. It's hard to believe, so long ago, and it seemed like yesterday. It was beautiful. We opened the cricket stadium, 129,000 seats, I think the largest stadium in the world. And it was an incredible period of time. There is truly a special bond between the United States and India, and the world's oldest democracy and the world's largest democracy. And I believe the world's largest country in terms of the numbers of people. And today the Prime Minister and I are announcing a framework to strengthen those ties even further economically. And the U.S.-India Compact for the 21st century is a historic initiative. Starting this year, we'll be increasing military sales to India by many billions of dollars. We're also paving the way to ultimately provide India with the F-35 stealth fighters. In 2017, my administration revived and reinvigorated the Quad security partnership. In our meeting today, the Prime Minister and I reaffirmed that strong cooperation among the United States, India, Australia, and Japan. And it's crucial, really, to maintaining peace and prosperity, tranquility, even in the Indo-Pacific. In addition, the United States and India will be working together like never before to confront the threat of radical Islamic terrorism, a threat all over the world, actually. Today, I'm pleased to announce that my administration has approved the extradition of one of the plotters and one of the very evil people of the world, and having to do with the horrific 2008 Mumbai terrorist attack, to face justice in India. So he's going to be going back to India to face justice. As we deepen our defense partnership, we'll also strengthen our economic ties and bring greater fairness and reciprocity to our trading relationship. As a signal of good faith, Prime Minister Modi recently announced the reductions to India's unfair, very strong tariffs that limit U.S. access into the Indian market very strongly, and really it's a big problem, I must say. India imposes a 30 to 40 to 60 and even 70% tariff on so many of the goods, and in some cases far more than that. And as an example, a 70% tariff on U.S. cars going into India, which makes it pretty much impossible to sell those cars. Today, the U.S. Trade deficit with India is almost $100 billion, and Prime Minister Modi and I have agreed that we'll begin negotiations to address the long-running disparities that should have been taken care of over the last 4 years, but they didn't do that, in the U.S.-India trading relationship, with the goal of signing an agreement. And we want, we want a certain level playing field, which we really think we're entitled to, and he does also, in fairness. So we're going to work on that very hard, and we can make up the difference very easily with the deficit, with the sale of oil and gas, LNG, of which we have more than anybody in the world. The Prime Minister and I also reached an important agreement on energy that will restore the United States as a leading supplier of oil and gas to India. It will be hopefully their #1 supplier, and the groundbreaking development for U.S. nuclear industry. India is also reforming its laws to welcome U.S. nuclear technology, which is at the highest level, into the Indian market. This will bring safe, clean, and affordable electricity to millions of Indians and tens of billions of India. And under the framework we are announcing today, the United States and India are also joining forces to ensure that artificial intelligence and other advanced technologies are developed by the two of the most advanced nations, intellectually and otherwise, technologically. Anywhere in the world, there's nobody very much closer. We have an incredible relationship there, and this is where it seems to be heading. And artificial intelligence, a very complex subject, but it seems to be where people want to be and they want to go, and we're leading right now by a lot, but other people will try to catch us. I don't know if they're going to be able to. We're going to make it available. We're going to make tremendous amounts of electricity available. We're going to let the people that are buying the electricity make their own electric plants, electric generation plants. And we've never done this in our country, but we're going to get it done very quickly. Lee Zeldin and his group are going to get the approvals in very rapid form. And we're calling it a national emergency, and that's exactly what it is. So we're going to remain at the top of the AI, or artificial intelligence, I think, for a long time to come, and we're going to be working very closely with India and other countries on that. But right now, we're the leader by quite a bit. Finally, we agreed to work together to help build one of the greatest trade routes in all of history. It will run from India to Israel to Italy and onward to the United States, connecting our partners by ports, railways, and undersea cables, many, many undersea cables. It's a big development. It's a lot of money going to be spent, and we've already spent some, but we're going to be spending a lot more in order to stay advanced and stay the leader. I'm pleased to report that with today's announcements, the friendship between the United States and India is the strongest I believe it's ever been. I think our relationship is the best it's ever been between two leaders of the two countries, and it's an honor to say that. I'd like to now invite the Prime Minister to say a few words, and then we'll take some questions, and we appreciate you all being here. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Your Excellency, President Trump, delegates of both countries, friends from the media, Namaskar. I would like to, first of all, express my heartfelt gratitude.
राष्ट्रपति ट्रंप, दोनों देशों के डेलीगेट्स, मीडिया के साथियों, नमस्कार। सबसे पहले मैं मेरे प्रिय मित्र राष्ट्रपति ट्रंप को मेरे शानदार स्वागत और आतिथ्य सत्कार के लिए हार्दिक आभार व्यक्त करता हूं। राष्ट्रपति ट्रंप ने भारत और अमेरिका संबंधों को अपने नेतृत्व से संजोया है, जीवंत बनाया है। जिस उत्साह से उनकी पहली टर्म में हमने मिलकर काम किया, वही उमंग, वही ऊर्जा और वही प्रतिबद्धता मैंने आज भी महसूस की है। आज की चर्चाओं में उनके पहले टर्म में हमारी उपलब्धियों का संतोष और गहरे आपसी विश्वास का सेतु था। साथ ही नए लक्ष्यों को प्राप्त करने का संकल्प भी था। हम मानते हैं कि भारत और अमेरिका का साथ और सहयोग एक बेहतर विश्व को शेप कर सकता है। फ्रेंड्स, अमेरिका के लोग राष्ट्रपति ट्रंप के मोटो मेक अमेरिका ग्रेट अगेन यानी मागा से परिचित है। भारत के लोग भी विरासत और विकास की पटरी पर विकसित भारत 2047 के दृढ़ संकल्प को लेकर तेज गति शक्ति से विकास की ओर अग्रसर है। अमेरिका की भाषा में कहूं तो विकसित भारत का मतलब मेक इंडिया ग्रेट अगेन यानी मीगा। जब अमेरिका और भारत साथ मिलकर काम करते हैं यानी मागा, मागा प्लस मीगा, तब बन जाता है मेगा पार्टनरशिप फॉर प्रॉस्पेरिटी। और यही मेगा स्पिरिट हमारे लक्ष्यों को नया स्केल और स्कोप देती है। फ्रेंड्स, आज हमने द्विपक्षीय व्यापार को 2030 तक 2 गुना से भी अधिक बढ़ाकर $500 बिलियन तक पहुंचाने का लक्ष्य निर्धारित किया है। हमारी टीमें एक पारस्परिक लाभकारी ट्रेड एग्रीमेंट को शीघ्र संपन्न करने पर काम करेगी। भारत की ऊर्जा सुरक्षा सुनिश्चित करने में हम ऑयल तथा गैस ट्रेड को बल देंगे। ऊर्जा इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर में निवेश भी बढ़ेगा। न्यूक्लियर एनर्जी क्षेत्र में हमने स्मॉल मॉड्यूलर रिएक्टर्स की दिशा में सहयोग बढ़ाने पर भी बात की। फ्रेंड्स, भारत की डिफेंस प्रिपेयर्डनेस में अमेरिका की महत्वपूर्ण भूमिका है। स्ट्रैटेजिक और ट्रस्टेड पार्टनर के नाते हम जॉइंट डेवलपमेंट, जॉइंट प्रोडक्शन और ट्रांसफर ऑफ टेक्नोलॉजी की दिशा में सक्रिय रूप से आगे बढ़ रहे हैं। आने वाले समय में भी नई टेक्नोलॉजी और इक्विपमेंट हमारी क्षमता बढ़ाएंगे। हमने ऑटोनोमस सिस्टम्स इंडस्ट्री अलायंस लॉन्च करने का निर्णय लिया है। अगले दशक के लिए डिफेंस कोऑपरेशन फ्रेमवर्क बनाया जाएगा। डिफेंस इंटरऑपरेबिलिटी, लॉजिस्टिक्स, रिपेयर और मेंटेनेंस भी इसके मुख्य भाग होंगे। फ्रेंड्स, 21वीं सदी टेक्नोलॉजी ड्रिवन सेंचुरी है। लोकतांत्रिक मूल्यों में विश्वास रखने वाले देशों के बीच टेक्नोलॉजी क्षेत्र में करीबी सहयोग पूरी मानवता को नई दिशा, शक्ति और अवसर दे सकता है। भारत और अमेरिका आर्टिफिशियल इंटेलिजेंस, सेमीकंडक्टर्स, क्वांटम, बायोटेक्नोलॉजी तथा टेक्नोलॉजीज में मिलकर काम करेंगे। आज हमने ट्रस्ट यानी ट्रांसफॉर्मिंग रिलेशनशिप यूटिलाइजिंग स्ट्रेटेजिक टेक्नोलॉजी, उस पर सहमति बनाई है। इसके अंतर्गत क्रिटिकल मिनरल, एडवांस मटेरियल और फार्मास्यूटिकल की मजबूत सप्लाई चेन्स बनाने पर बल दिया जाएगा। लिथियम और रेयर अर्थ जैसे स्ट्रेटेजिक मिनरल के लिए रिकवरी और प्रोसेसिंग इनिशिएटिव्स लॉन्च करने का भी निर्णय लिया है। स्पेस के क्षेत्र में अमेरिका से हमारा करीबी सहयोग रहा है। इसरो और नासा के आपसी सहयोग से बनाई निसार सैटेलाइट शीघ्र ही भारतीय लॉन्च व्हीकल पर अंतरिक्ष की उड़ान भरेगी। फ्रेंड्स, भारत और अमेरिका की साझेदारी लोकतंत्र और लोकतांत्रिक मूल्यों तथा व्यवस्थाओं को सशक्त बनाती है। इंडो पैसिफिक में शांति, स्थिरता और समृद्धि को बढ़ाने के लिए हम मिलकर काम करेंगे। इसमें क्वाड की विशेष भूमिका होगी। इस वक्त भारत में होने जा रही क्वाड समिट में हम पार्टनर देशों के साथ नए क्षेत्रों में सहयोग बढ़ाएंगे। आईमेक और I2U2 के तहत हम इकोनॉमिक कॉरिडोर और कनेक्टिविटी इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर पर मिलकर काम करेंगे। आतंकवाद के खिलाफ लड़ाई में भारत और अमेरिका दृढ़ता से साथ खड़े रहे हैं। हम सहमत हैं कि सीमा पार आतंकवाद के उन्मूलन के लिए ठोस कार्रवाई आवश्यक है और मैं राष्ट्रपति जी का आभारी हूं। उन्होंने 2008 के जिसने भारत में नरसंहार किया था, उस मुजरिम को अब भारत के हवाले करने का निर्णय किया है। भारत की अदालतें उचित कार्यवाही करेंगी। फ्रेंड्स, अमेरिका में रहने वाला भारतीय समुदाय हमारे संबंधों की महत्वपूर्ण कड़ी है। हमारे पीपल टू पीपल टाइज को और गहरा करने के लिए हम शीघ्र ही लॉस एंजलिस और बोस्टन में भारत के नए कॉन्सुलेट खोलेंगे। हमने अमेरिका की यूनिवर्सिटी और शिक्षा संस्थानों को भारत में ऑफशोर कैंपस खोलने के लिए निमंत्रण दिया है। राष्ट्रपति ट्रंप आपकी मित्रता और भारत के लिए दृढ़ प्रतिबद्धता के लिए मैं आपका आभार व्यक्त करता हूं। भारत के लोग तो 2020 की आपकी यात्रा को आज भी याद करते हैं और उम्मीद करते हैं कि राष्ट्रपति ट्रंप एक बार फिर उनके पास आएंगे। 140 करोड़ भारतवासियों की ओर से मैं आपको भारत आने के लिए आमंत्रित करता हूं। बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद।
Okay, thank you very much. That was excellent. We'll do a few questions, please. Please, go ahead. Please, go ahead. Yeah. Yeah, blue shirt.
Thank you, Mr. President. People in India will naturally welcome your decision to extradite Thakur Rana to India back home. In that context, I would like to ask you a question about, in the last few years, we have seen several groups in the U.S. raising anti-India voice, calling about separation, terrorism activities in India. Do you think that should continue here in the U.S. as well?
You're going to have to go louder.
Mr. President, people in India would be welcoming your decision to extradite Thakur Rana to...
I can't understand a word he's saying. It's not it's the accent. It's a little bit tough for me to hear that.
Can I try again?
How about you, please? Go ahead back there.
Mr. President, thank you. First, I want to ask
thank you very much.
You and the President, you both spoke about combating ISIS. You both sounded very excited about this partnership upcoming. And I was curious, how much more confident are you with President Trump leading this country that there will be peace through strength and you will have a successful partnership with the United States versus with Biden's incompetence and weakness over the last 4 years?
That's your question, but I'll answer it. I agree with you. Yeah, gross incompetence. We're going to have a fantastic relationship, and it has been, look, the whole world's been set back over the last 4 years by the weakness of the United States, the weak leadership of the United States, but I think we've taken care of it in just 3 weeks. It seems to me that even some of the media that we wouldn't prefer has been writing that this is a much different country right now, that the world has a light over it, not only our country, but the whole world. The Prime Minister told me that before, too, even over India. The world has a light. They need the United States to be strong and powerful, but good. And I think that's happened, and I think it's happened in a very short period of time. But I will tell you, we're going to have a fantastic relationship, and it'll make both countries much stronger. Yes, go ahead, please.
Okay, Geeta Mohan from India Today, sir. I'll just take my colleague Lalit Jha's question forward because you couldn't understand.
Okay, fine.
The question is about the fact that you've decided to extradite Thakur Rana. Thank you so much. India has been waiting to have him back in India to bring him to justice. But there are many other elements in the United States of America, particularly Khalistani separatists who've been working against Indian interests. How is the United States of America going to cooperate on that front with India? There have been allegations that have been leveled against Indian agencies by the Biden administration. Are you going to relook that with Tulsi Gabbard as DNI now?
Well, I don't think India had a very good relationship with the Biden administration. Biden, they wouldn't sell them oil and gas, which is rather hard to believe because, you know, it's a good thing to do. And a lot of things happened that weren't very appropriate, I thought, between India and the administration, the Biden administration. But as you said, we're giving a very violent man, it seems to me. I mean, I don't know that he's been convicted yet or will be, but let's assume he's a pretty violent person. We're giving him back to India immediately. And there are more to follow because we have quite a few requests. So we work with India on crime. And we want to make it good for India, and it's very important. So that kind of a relationship is very important to us. Okay? Go ahead, please. Go ahead.
Thank you. Mr. President, you've repeatedly called India a big abuser of trade and said it is really difficult to do business in India because of tariffs. You announced reciprocal tariffs today. I'm hoping you can speak about what kind of reciprocal tariffs India can expect. Are you willing to make any concessions? And how can India head off these tariffs? I also have one for the Prime Minister.
Well, India's been, to us, just about the highest tariffed nation anywhere in the world. They've been very strong on tariffs, and I don't blame them necessarily, but it's a different way of doing business. It's very hard to sell into India because they have trade barriers, very strong tariffs. We are right now a reciprocal nation. We are going to, if it's India or if it's somebody else with low tariffs, we're going to have the same. We're going to have whatever India charges, we're charging them. Whatever another country charges, we're charging them. So it's called reciprocal, which I think is a very fair way. We didn't have that. I was going to do that in my other term, and we had the greatest economy ever in the world. There's never been an economy like we had, and then we got hit with COVID. We had to focus on that, and I wasn't really in the mood to be putting it on Italy and Spain and France and India, frankly, and a lot of other countries, because the world was very troubled until we got rid of that nightmare. But we had the strongest economy anywhere in the world during that fairly long period of time during my first term, as you know, and we didn't do the tariffs. We would have done the reciprocal tariffs, but we decided, and I decided, I think on a human basis, on a humane basis, not to do them because of the fact that there was such suffering all over the world. The last thing we needed to talk about is trade problems. But now we do. We're doing, we see a tremendous future for our country, but we felt that now it's finally time, after 45 or 50 years of abuse, that we will do, and this isn't India, this is among a lot of nations. The European Union is very difficult for us, very, very difficult. They tax our companies at levels that nobody's ever seen before. They take advantage of a lot of things, so we're not happy about that. China, of course, is terrible, and we've never taken in 10 cents until I was president. We've taken in hundreds of billions of dollars from China since I've been president in first term and now. And we have to do that just as a mechanism of fairness. And that's what I've done. And so we are being reciprocal with India. Whatever India charges, we charge them. So frankly, it no longer matters to us that much what they charge, because whatever they charge, I had discussions with India in the first term about the fact that their tariffs were very high, and I was unable to get a concession. So we're just going to do it the easy way, and we're just going to say whatever you charge, we charge. And I think that's fair for the people of the United States, and I think it's actually fair for India. Okay?
Are you willing to make any concessions, sir? Any concessions?
Go ahead, please. Ask to the
A
Prime
question
Minister,
for the
please.
Prime Minister, please.
Ask to the Prime Minister, please.
Yes. Sorry. Yoshita Singh with Press Trust of India. Thank you, Mr. President. Prime Minister, the U.S. is giving a lot of push to curb illegal immigration, and India has been cooperating on this issue. How does India see this issue in the larger context? Thank you.
सवाल सिर्फ भारत का नहीं है, वैश्विक रूप से हम इस मत के हैं कि गैर कानूनी तरीके से जो लोग दूसरे देशों में होते हैं उनको वहां रहने का कोई कानूनी अधिकार तो है नहीं। जहां तक भारत और अमेरिका का सवाल है, हमने हमेशा कहा है कि जो वेरीफाइड होगा, कि जो सच्चे अर्थ में भारत का ही नागरिक होगा, वो अगर अमेरिका में गैर कानूनी तरीके से रहता है तो उसको वापस लेने के लिए भारत तैयार है। लेकिन बात हमारे लिए वहां से रुकती नहीं है। ये सामान्य परिवारों के बच्चे होते हैं, उनको बड़े बड़े सपने दिखाए जाते हैं और उनको ज्यादातर ऐसे होते हैं उनको गुमराह करके लाया जाता है, और इसलिए ये ह्यूमन ट्रैफिकिंग में जुड़े हुए पूरे इकोसिस्टम पर हमने वार करना चाहिए। और अमेरिका और भारत मिल करके हमारी कोशिश है, और हमारी कोशिश रहनी चाहिए कि इस प्रकार की पूरी इकोसिस्टम को हमें जड़ मूल से नष्ट करना चाहिए, ताकि ह्यूमन ट्रैफिकिंग बंद हो और गरीब लोगों को जो अपनी धन दौलत बेच करके ऐसे बड़े बड़े सपने दिखा करके उनको अंधेरे में रख करके ले जाया जाए, उनके साथ भी अन्याय है। और इसलिए हमारी बड़ी लड़ाई उस पूरे इकोसिस्टम के खिलाफ है, और मुझे विश्वास है कि राष्ट्रपति ट्रंप भी इस इकोसिस्टम को खत्म करने में भारत का पूरा सहयोग करेंगे।
Thank you, Mr. President. A question for the Prime Minister Modi first, if I may. I wanted to ask you, did you discuss any possible business deals with Elon Musk during your meetings today, Mr. Prime Minister? And Mr. President, I wanted to ask you, today you spoke about hoping to have three-way talks with President Xi and President Putin. What would you say to European leaders and other allies who may be concerned that you're apparently more keen to speak to America's adversaries than to its allies? Thank you.
Well, maybe I'll just go in first on this one. We had some talks, and we told the European Union, we told the NATO people, largely they overlap, you have to pay more money because it's unfair what we're doing. We're doing a tremendous amount more. We're probably $200 billion